Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and I am excited to have this guest in studio. He has a very unique business, and this is Dr. Ethan Raath with Highwire Leadership. And we met at an event that we had for Colorado Business Roundtable for the Leadership Council. Mm-hmm. And interestingly enough, you work with leaders.
Yes.
In all capacities. But the exciting thing that you do is that you take a look at their brain to figure out what type of leader they are,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Fascinating stuff. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of that, let's hear about you and your background and how you got this brainchild in front of you.
Well, thank you very much, Alex. It's a privilege, pleasure to be here today, and appreciate the opportunity very much and to be supporting you and your program.
Thank you.
Yeah, before everything, people wonder about my accent. I'm originally from South Africa. Wife's American. I've been here a long time, so we get that out of the way.
I appreciate that.
I always say it's tainted because my wife's from Tennessee.
I hear it.
Yeah, it slips in easily. I first came to the States in the 70s to study, and I went to college and grad school, and then went back to South Africa for 6 years, particularly with a passion for being engaged with the human rights struggle there. And was there for 6 years, started my doctorate while I was there, finished it when I returned to the States. So I started out as a Presbyterian minister.
Oh. All right.
All right.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the umbrella behind me. But I have done a lot of other things besides that. I've worked in religious organizations, but I've been in the corporate world. I've been in nonprofit, academics, and have done a variety of leadership roles in community development as well.
Yeah, so you see leaders in all of these avenues.
I have.
Yeah.
Over the years, I have counseled and coached people from so many different levels. And so I bring 40 years of experience of working with people in all sorts of circumstances and needs.
Is there a favorite industry at all?
I struggle with that question. People ask me about that.
Yeah.
But what I'm dealing with is the human side of leadership and the issues of social cohesion and relationship and communication and conflict resolution, stress management, and that's common to every workplace. So where there's a need, I like to be available. I just have a passion, a heart for working with people who are under that kind of stress. Yeah.
Yeah.
A few years ago, I came to Colorado for a job that shortly after about 3 months knew it wasn't going to be a good fit, but I had to stick. And in the process, I burnt out completely and collapsed emotionally.
Yeah.
Took me a couple of years to recover, but in that time of recovery, I picked up on tools. I could evaluate what had happened. And when someone challenged me on where was I going forward, I immediately had the image that I want to work with leaders who are going through struggles to keep them from collapsing and burning out. My doctoral studies were on stress and burnout in the helping profession. I woke up one morning looking for a company for my name, and I woke up one morning and the word Highwire just filled my head, and I immediately had that image of a leader out there on the Highwire.
Balancing.
So my mission for Highwire Leadership is to help leaders keep their balance between the push for results and the pull of relationships, to keep them vital and to help them keep moving forward with success.
Yes. Well, one question that springs to mind as you say that, first of all, we're terrible about taking care of our mental selves in the States. It's kind of tragic, really. So I love that you're in this niche place of taking care of leaders, right? We look to them a lot, and we add to their stress as employees and as people that need from them.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for your work. But on top of that, I think the number one thing that people say when you get stressed or burnt out, change industry, change jobs. And that's not necessarily the best path, right?
No, not necessarily. There's ways to, as when we get to talking about my program, looking at people are they in a right fit for what they're doing? And it might, just changing another industry, they might end up repeating the same thing if they don't know themselves and what their preferences are for working.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. So first of all, tell me, what makes a great leader?
Well, there are different styles of leadership, but what I like to promote is what I call relational leadership, really staying connected with the people you're working with. There is the golden rule, which do for others as you do for yourself, which is great, but not everything I want for me is what you want for you. So there's the platinum rule, which I'm sure many have heard of, which says do for others as they would have done for them. So that means as a leader, you need to be relationally connected to your team. You need to know their strengths, their weaknesses, their preferences, where they work best in order to help them be productive. And I like to say that you can present the vision, the project, whatever it may be, and then you're saying, what do you need from me to help you succeed? Because then their success will become your success.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do a presentation on leading with heart, and it's about humanity, empathy, attentiveness, responsiveness, and trust. And all of those are communication skills. First knowing yourself, and then appreciating your own humanity, the humanity of those who work with you.
Yes.
I just say briefly, I hear so much about bad bosses or people hating their bosses and everything, and my sense is that if bosses aren't acting appropriately, it's because they're totally stressed out. And the idea of climbing in your career is often based on skills, but you haven't been prepared on how to work with people. So that's my strength on helping you with the human side of leadership.
Yes.
Can I tell a quick story on
Please
that?
do.
Sure. I was teaching adult classes at Xavier University in Cincinnati of people coming back from work, working people working on their degrees. And it was a class on interpersonal conflict management. And so the class, it was great having people working because they could bring examples of what was happening at work. And suddenly one day a lady sitting in front said, I hate my boss. I was like, whoa. She said, I walked the long way around so I don't have to see him. I've applied for a transfer. What should I do? It just popped out of me. I said, I want you to sit down, go into his office, sit down and ask him, what do you need from me? Never. She came back the next week and she said, I did what you said. And, well, he said, I'm going out of town next week. I so appreciate it. There's a report coming in, needs to get to so-and-so, and this needs to get done, that needs to come. She said, he was a different person. Surprise, surprise. At the end of the semester, she came to me and said, you know what? My boss was going through a divorce and none of us knew about it.
Yeah.
So I support leaders on the personal and the professional level.
Yes. I at the end of the day, we're all still humans.
Yeah.
We know that we have a job to do, and this, I think that for a long time there was this theme of when you walk through the door of your business, you drop all your personal problems.
Yeah.
And that's simply not attainable as a human.
Everybody's bringing it in.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Of course we are.
Yeah.
Of course we are.
And we all feel it. When things are going well, we feel it. When somebody's not doing well, it affects the rest of us.
Yes.
So,
would you say that vulnerability is kind of a key trait?
how do you mean vulnerability?
Allowing yourself to be vulnerable as a leader. Would you say good or bad on that?
Yes, I think the challenge for leaders is how transparent to be or how vulnerable to be. I'm working with a young entrepreneur who, the question is, how much do I open up? I feel like I've got to be the one who's strong. Every month we don't know if we have enough money to keep going, and I want to keep the team up. And I said, there's no harm in saying, hey guys, we're under this struggle, we're feeling, but we're in it together, we'll make it. And don't fake it, don't pretend it, because they know.
We do, yes. As workers, we absolutely do. We know. And especially if we're going to business for a young entrepreneur, right?
Yes,
We know you've
yes.
got a startup. We know it's stressful.
Yeah.
Just let us in.
I had a leader say to me, should I be friends with my team. And I said, well, there's a line between being friendly and being your friend.
Yes.
And you can be friendly and supportive, but intimate friendship with any one or two sets things off with others. So, yeah.
Yes, so maintaining that professionality, but also letting people know that they can still come to you.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's that high wire walk, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I like to think of the tools I offer as that balance beam.
Yeah.
You're never going to be perfectly balanced. There's times when you got to lean more one way and the other way, but it's keeping it as balanced as we can.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to talk about this whole brain performance. Fascinating stuff. First of all, check out the website in the description below. You can find more at Highwire Leadership. So tell me about this whole brain. Obviously, you studied behavioral and emotions and things like that. Clearly, we all set patterns that project us towards our careers and things that we want to do. So tell me how the brain plays into this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's a particular model that I use, a profile called Neethling Brain Instruments, but NBI for short. Dr. Cobus Neethling from South Africa studied here with the split brain studies, left brain, right brain. We've come a long way, but out of that split brain studies, he's developed a style of a profile questioning on what are your thinking preferences that show your preferred style of working and living. Thinking preferences. So there are profiles that talk about personality, some talk about behavior. This isn't about personality and behavior. It's just knowing your thinking preferences show your preferred style of working. So using the metaphor of the left brain, right brain, he's developed a 4-quadrant model that eventually breaks down into 8 dimensions. But can I just go into the 4 dimensions quickly?
Yes, absolutely.
If you imagine a circle with 4 quadrants,
Yes.
the top right quadrant is people who prefer to be what we call strategist imagineers. They're visionaries, they're thinking about the big picture, they're very vision driven. If you want to pick up on who that is, they're usually asking the question, why? Why we're doing it this way? Why can't we try this? Why isn't it? They want to do something new.
Yeah.
They drive people on the top left quadrant, the realist analyst, crazy. And I'm off the scale on the visionary strategist. I need somebody to take my ideas and see if they work.
Yes.
And so that's part of that whole brain balance when you're working with others, that the realist analyst likes to dig into and research and get deep into understanding things. And these are the kind of careers that are in research and analysis. Oftentimes loners, lab people, cubicle. I think one of the worst things in IT is people like to be in the cubicle, and after 10 years, oh, you've been here long enough, you're going to be a supervisor. Leave me alone. Let me stay where I am. So the analyst can take those ideas and see how they work and develop it. Then the bottom left quadrant is what we call the stalwart preserver. It's the person who's very orderly, who doesn't like a lot of change or doesn't like surprises, keeps the show running, keeps it on track, is always looking, how do we apply this? What are the results? So they're always asking the question, how? How do we do it? And then the bottom right quadrant is the socializer, empathizer, the person who relates very well with people. They keep the team going. They're people driven. They're good on sales. And they're always asking the question, who? Who does this apply to? Who does this help? So you've got the vision. You've got the person who knows how to figure it out. You've got the person who figures out how we're going to make it work, and then the person who gets out there and sells it. So that's your whole brain team.
Yeah.
And we've jumped from leader to team right now. I'll come back. But in shaping a team, especially early on with entrepreneurs, you might end up with too many people on one side for their skills. And it's always looking at how do we balance the team. So you may have skills in an area, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's what you like to do. So what this profile does is show you, usually in two dominant areas that you prefer to work in, and you need to stay there most of the time. But we need to be comfortable with discomfort. There's necessity requires us to work in those other areas, and we can build our strengths in those areas, and that helps us be whole brain in what we're doing. I'm very small on the research analyst. I don't like doing that, but I can do it. I wouldn't have done my doctorate. I wouldn't be preparing lectures. I wouldn't be developing workshops if I didn't know how to do it. But what I really love doing is standing in front of people and teaching and sharing. So it's having that balance. And sometimes we drive each other crazy. The realist analyst has got all the answers, doesn't want anybody to talk about it, just do what I tell you to do, while the empathizer is trying to build things up. And so, an example was a leader who came to me and she said, I want you to fix my team. And I said, well, I got to work with you too, because as the leader is, so is the team. And we discovered that as we looked at her profile, that she was new in this position and was very engaged and micromanaging. And when I talked to the staff, that was driving them crazy because the previous boss was hands off and let them do their own thing. And when we ran the profile, discovered that she really was a strategist and Imagineer, but yet she was deep in the weeds, was driving her crazy and everybody else. But I was able to say to her, right now you're starting, you need to understand what's going on here, but eventually you need to ease into that comfort zone where you're out promoting the business, relating to people, doing the big vision, and trusting your team. Mm-hmm. So when we worked together on this, we ran profiles for each member of the team. We got together, everybody had a good laugh, recognizing where each other were. Mm-hmm. We looked at the ways of communicating with each other. Each has a different style in these profiles. And I came back 3 months later to check in, and somebody said, I said, how's it going? And somebody said, we had a meeting recently to share some extra work. And we were saying, is this something you'd like to do? He said, I've never been in a meeting like that. We usually say, do you have time for this? And we were saying, it was a whole shift in thinking and created a whole new dynamic environment for them.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating. Let me add, that's the general profile, and what happens is that there's also the leadership profile because it can be slightly different. Okay.
The entrepreneur that I was talking about, he's strong on the vision for this business and figuring out how to do it, and his social thing was very small, but he was having to go out and meet people to raise funds. Yeah. And so there was this area of discomfort, but I've worked with him to develop that, and now he is comfortable in that. So his brain has gone whole brain in that area of his comfort. On his leadership style, though, his social was huge because he likes to be relating and socializing and connecting with his staff and knowing what was going on. So it's different from working directly with people to the way he's relating with his team and how he likes to lead them. So there can be subtle differences.
Absolutely. Which is just fascinating to me, right? Because I guess when I was first looking at this, I assumed that how you worked would also be how you would be as a leader. Which is not always the case.
Not always the case.
Yes.
Not always the case.
Fascinating.
This is not only great for developing whole brain teams, balanced, but also for hiring.
Yeah.
Because I've worked in career consulting development. I've done so many things. My purpose is to live an interesting life. And I have. that usually when you look at a job description, it's all about the skills. And I say to folks, all right, narrow down to 3 candidates, but let's run the profile and see if they really like to do this kind of work.
Yeah.
Because if they do, then they'll be productive.
Yes, absolutely. So tell me about the profile itself. How long is this? Are they answering questions? Is it in person? Can they do it online?
It's online, 20 minutes, answering questions, very quick.
Yeah.
And the response comes through very quickly.
Awesome. All right.
And then there's the option of me either letting you have it and read it for yourself. It's pretty detailed, but the greater benefit is to sit down with me for an hour and let's analyze this. We look at where does this fit with what you've done before, where you are now, and what you might want to do in the future.
Yes, absolutely. I imagine that do you have repeat customers then as people change careers? Do they come back and see if in a different industry they feel a different way about it?
This is a very stable test. Unless there's some kind of major life event that changes this, no matter where you go, your preferences are going to stay the same.
All right. Good information to know. So it's one of those, it's kind of like a one-stop, but you are great at team brains, right? You can do the leadership, but is your preference to work with teams?
It's both. I really like to start with the leader, and as we get to know each other and closer, we see where it unfolds and to how I can help with the team. It might be an individual who has a need, or it might be the team. I don't go charging in on that. We wait to see where the need is and respond to the need that's rises up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of needs, we have a few minutes left here. You were telling me off air about some of the work that you do in disaster relief.
Yes.
Yes. If you don't, I just think that's really cool, and I want to hear more about that. So tell me a little about that work.
I'm a volunteer on the National Response Team for Presbyterian Disaster Assistance. We're early responders. We do emotional, spiritual care. We do short-term, long-term recovery. But an area that I really work in is doing workshops on stress management and resiliency for long-term responders who, long after the event, are the ones trying to help with the recovery and getting people through their lives and starting over again. So I was just in Nebraska and Iowa last week leading 4 workshops for the folks who were working after the flooding.
Yeah.
That was so drastic there. So that stress management, resiliency, working with leaders is part of my regular work, but as part of my volunteer work as well.
Yes, and that's fascinating. So we're talking, policemen and firemen and those responders, right, that you're working with?
More the people who are working with the survivors of the trauma.
Okay.
And they're meeting with them and counseling with them and trying to find solutions and day to day. And it's a lot of strain just listening to people's stories and dealing with their trauma. So it's helping to stay resilient so they can do well.
Counseling counselors.
Yeah.
Yes.
They cry too.
Yes.
Leaders cry too.
Oh, absolutely. You can say that again. Leaders cry too. They are human, right?
Yes,
Yes.
we are.
Well, Dr. Ethan Raath, please tell me where I can find more information about this process and if my business needs a boost on whole brain performance.
Well, go to my website, which is up there, highwireleadership.com. Look under leadership tools, and you will find a description of this profile. There's also one on organizational wellness. That's just like another whole topic, but and there's a contact page there that you can reach me, or if you want to go to LinkedIn, you can reach out to me through that.
Thank you so much. This
Thank
has
you.
been a pleasure and quite a conversation. I, for one, am curious about where I land on this whole brain performance, so we may have to do that.
Let's find out.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Connect and Collaborate. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page while you're here. You can find more information about the show in the description below, so be sure to click on that link. Check out highwireleadership.com and have a wonderful day.